Good morning. On behalf of Engineers Australia, I am delighted to welcome you all to our Thought Leader series, Engineering the 2032 Olympics and Beyond. My name is Megan Purdy and I'm the Industry Partnerships Manager here at Engineers Australia. I begin today by acknowledging the Turrbal and Yagara people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and to their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them and their cultures and to elders past and present. Now, before we move into the formalities for today, just to give, I suppose, some housekeeping issues. So for the bathrooms, ladies, if we go out this exit, it's the second corridor, go down to the right. Gents, it's just that first corridor to the right. Emergency exits, past the lifts, and you'll see them just near the ladies' toilets, actually. Okay. You may also have observed that we do have some lights and cameras happening today. I don't know if you haven't noticed, but if you haven't, we are recording today's event, and we will actually be broadcasting this through Engineers Australia's YouTube channel at a later date. So we will let everyone know when that will be streaming so you can have a look. If you do have any questions with regards to this, please come see me after the event today and happy to answer any questions that you may have. I would like to acknowledge that today's event has been hosted with Engineers Australia's industry partner, Bentley Systems. Bentley Systems is an infrastructure engineering software company and provides innovative software to advance the world's infrastructure, sustaining the global economy and environment. They are the leading global provider of software solutions to engineers, architects, geospatial professionals, constructors and owner-operators for the design, construction and operations of infrastructure. We thank Bentley Systems for their continued support. Now today, we will hear from our keynote speaker, followed by a panel discussion, and then we will actually open the forum to you guys, the audience, with a Q&A. So I encourage you all to please get involved with the session and ask your speakers your questions. Don't forget just to let us know who you are and who your question is directed to. Oops. Right. I'd now like to welcome our keynote for today, Leah Kelly, Deputy Director General, Infrastructure and Regional Strategy from the Department of State Development and Infrastructure. Leah has executive level experience in the private and public sectors in policy development, transactions, commercial advisory, economic analysis, business case development and infrastructure project procurement and delivery. Leah is currently responsible for delivery of Brisbane 2032 venues and villages and the Queen's Wharf Brisbane development, as well as development of regional infrastructure plans, capital reporting and updates to the Queensland Government infrastructure pipeline, and a range of policy initiatives under the state infrastructure strategy. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Leah Kelly.
Thank you, Megan. I'd like to echo your acknowledgement of country and also pay my respects to elders past and present. I'd like to thank today, before I start, my fellow panellists, Evelyn Story, Regional Managing Director for Oricon, Rob Malkin, Senior Regional Director for ANZ for Bentley Systems, and also thanks again to Megan, Industry Partnerships Manager from Engineers Australia, and also to Engineers Australia, the organisers of today's event. Is everyone able to hear me okay? I don't have a booming voice, so I'll try and stand close to the mic. So, as introduced, Leah Kelly, Deputy Director General in the Department of State Development and Infrastructure. I'm honoured to be here today to present this keynote address to all of you on a topic that is so relevant to what we as an industry are working on, engineering the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games and beyond. Now, I'll start by saying I'm an economist, not an engineer, and I briefly thought about finding a joke about an economist and an engineer walking into a bar, but I'll spare you my bad joke telling. But I am in awe of the work that engineers do to deliver the infrastructure that we all enjoy in our communities. So a little bit about the role of state development and infrastructure also. We're an agency that supports new industry development, and we have a central role in coordinating and reporting on the government's capital program and what we're referring to as the big build. We're planning for growth and for new communities and working with local councils to ensure economic growth flows through to those communities. We're also leading the coordination and planning of the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. So hosting the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games will define our city and our state for decades to come. The Brisbane 2032 Games will also occur during the biggest decade of infrastructure delivery in Queensland's history. Currently, the government has committed almost $89 billion over the next 4 years to deliver infrastructure, and this is Queensland's big build. It's vital that we seize this incredible opportunity that Brisbane 2032 affords us, not just to showcase Queensland to the world, but to leave a legacy that we can all be proud of. However, we're doing this in the context of unprecedented changes in population, our international profile, and our climate, all while the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games is set to put the Sunshine State in the international spotlight. As the fastest growing state, our Games legacy will have much to do with catering for that growth and ensuring livability for decades to come. And that means putting in place the infrastructure that will sustain us for decades and creating new opportunities to grow our economy through increased tourism and trade. There's no doubt that Brisbane 32 will be a catalyst to build the certainty and confidence needed to trigger industry development in new skills, capacity and supply chains. As the world moves towards a low-carbon future, it's also about ensuring Brisbane 2032 will be remembered as a green Games, because Queensland is quickly building a reputation with clean energy. Focusing on southeast Queensland, which is where the majority of Brisbane 2032 events will take place, the population is currently around 3.8 million, and our new modelling says that by 2046, almost 6 million people are expected to call southeast Queensland home. So how are we going to accommodate this growth and create a region where 6 million people can thrive? To allow for this, it will require approximately 1 million new homes and around 1.1 million new jobs. To break it down further, we will need more than 34,000 new dwellings every year, as well as increased transport, accessibility, job opportunities and essential services. Now, focusing on that infrastructure legacy, there's no better place to start than the significant opportunities that the 2032 Games affords Queensland and Australia. And while it gets a lot of media, it's not just about the 4-week celebration of sport, although that will be an incredible time in Queensland's history books. But it's about the catalytic transformation that global event can set in motion. Projects brought forward and upgrades made to existing venues to host the Games will reshape some of Queensland's most significant precincts and improve connectivity throughout southeast Queensland. The business cases and project validation reports being developed are working hard to balance planning and investing for a successful Games experience and lasting benefits that the community can enjoy for decades to come. As you may be aware, on the 18th of January, the Queensland Government announced the commencement of the 60-day independent review of the Brisbane 2032 sports venues in the master plan. That review does include the Gabba and the Brisbane Arena, alongside new and upgraded sports venues. This review is well timed to assist the government in ensuring investments made in sports venues are affordable, deliverable, fit for purpose and create a legacy for Queensland, with the findings from the review to be presented to the government on the 18th of March. It's worth noting that any proposed change of sporting venue resulting from this review also requires the approval of the Australian Government, where it's a funding partner, and via the Organising Committee for the Olympic Games, the IOC and relevant international federations for sports, as well as the International Paralympic Committee and relevant international federations for sports in the Paralympic program. So lots of stakeholders to work through any proposed changes from that independent review panel. While recently there has been a lot of media focus on the locations for the major events such as swimming and athletics, as well as the ceremonies, the minor venues program also has new and upgraded projects to be delivered ahead of Brisbane 2032 for the community to enjoy for decades to come. And then we have the villages. It's proposed that there will be 3 primary villages in Brisbane, Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast, and a rowing satellite village in Coralbin. After the Games, the 3 permanent villages will provide thousands of new homes for southeast Queensland's growing population within vibrant mixed-use precincts. A key component of our projects is delivering a sustainable legacy as we continue to transition to a low-carbon economy. Government has set its targets for 70% renewable energy by 2032 and 80% by 2035, and employing sustainable practices in construction and development will support these goals. A number of other efforts are underway to support climate-positive infrastructure. So for the Games, this includes registering eligible villages and venues with the Green Building Council of Australia and targeting 6-star Green Star accreditation on new and upgraded venues and villages where we can. It also means targeting 100% renewable energy, renewable electricity and fuel during construction, which will be a significant challenge. And it also means zero net waste. So we'll be looking to recycle materials that may have previously gone to landfill and using reused or recycled building materials where possible. I also wanted to highlight 2 other priorities for the Brisbane 2032 infrastructure program. Firstly, accessibility. Brisbane 2032 will promote a society and culture that's inclusive for all, regardless of age, culture, gender or ability. And the ability to easily access a venue and for people to make their way between venues and precincts is our vision for Brisbane City. We want locals and visitors of all abilities to explore our state and to cheer our athletes on for gold. And we want people to be able to do that seamlessly. Our department is collaborating with the Office of the Queensland Government Architect to develop an accessibility and inclusion strategy for Brisbane 2032 venues and villages. And we're also wanting to highlight First Nations culture. So Brisbane 2032 is an opportunity to honour, embrace and showcase the unique and ancient history of the world's oldest living cultures. First Nations people will play an important role in planning and delivering the Games, including in the design of venues and spaces. So again, we're partnering with the Queensland Government Architect to develop a design strategy, working closely with design firm Blacklash and with the University of Queensland to ensure Brisbane 32 venues and villages are designed with First Nations groups in mind and being jointly designed with them. So all of these measures will put sustainability, accessibility and First Nations peoples at the heart of Queensland's once-in-a-generation event, while also contributing to our long-term decarb targets. So Queensland is already on its way to a clean energy future that promotes innovation, more jobs, livable communities and economic growth. Renewables can create more jobs than we've had before and unlock economic opportunities for our state. And that includes investment in the $62 billion Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan. So again, the Games gets a lot of media and we talk about the very significant investment in venues and villages infrastructure and also transport to connect the Games regions. But the scale of that investment pales in comparison to what will be made through the Energy and Jobs Plan across the state. Maximising our decarbonisation opportunities is also about our natural and driven advantages in Queensland. We have the sunshine, minerals, capability and government commitment to support locally and supply the world with the products we need for decarbonisation. Through the Queensland New Industry Development Strategy released last year, we're supporting new industry development in renewable energy, green hydrogen, critical minerals, large-scale battery manufacturing, recycling and biotechnology. We're making this a reality through infrastructure like the Gladstone Energy Manufacturing Centre, the world's biggest electrolyser factory, and also supported by our partnership with Fortescue to manufacture electrolysers locally, and they also have plans for a neighbouring facility to use electrolysers to make green hydrogen. While we have these great opportunities, there are also challenges that we collectively need to address. Something that we seem to talk about constantly, and many parts of both the government and industry and research is applying their minds to, is how we can increase productivity in construction. And the overall infrastructure planning and delivery is a real challenge in Queensland and across the nation. The adoption of new technologies will be key in breaking through this. Technology will increase opportunities to engage with stakeholders, access, analyse and share information. We're hearing more and looking at ways we can scale up modern methods of construction alongside AI, robotics and other technology that will enable greater use of off-site construction, enhancing productivity and reducing risks. For example, a school or hospital can have many of its components built in a factory environment. Within government, a number of agencies are looking at ways to incorporate MMC and approaches to standardisation of design For example, Public Works, now in Department of Housing, Local Government, Planning and Public Works, is already using MMC to look at ways to construct key worker accommodation in our communities and regions. Embracing technology and innovation is essential to support new ways of interacting, working and delivering services for Queenslanders. So we've got the State Infrastructure Strategy, which a number of the actions of which are overseen by the Department of State Development and Infrastructure, but also across a range of infrastructure delivery agencies. And that strategy looks to embed a digital by default approach across the infrastructure lifecycle, where digital tools are used as the accepted standard, which opens significant opportunities for the infrastructure and construction sectors. And while we've set that digital by default approach, there's still a long way to go in the delivery of our infrastructure to have that embedded and become the norm. The Queensland Government's digital enablement for Queensland infrastructure, the principles for building information modelling implementation, is already underway to transform the way the infrastructure construction program is delivered, using information management processes to gain efficiencies in the design and construction processes and flowing into operations. Over the next decade, this technology will combine with digital twins and the Internet of Things, enabling the Queensland Government to plan infrastructure more effectively, to build at a lower cost and to operate and maintain infrastructure for better performance over a longer lifespan. In last year's state budget, the Department of State Development and Infrastructure secured funding to be able to invest in a proof of concept for a South East Queensland digital twin, leveraging work already undertaken as part of the Cross River Rail project. A key success factor for this is data availability, along with the use of common standards and processes, as well as mechanisms to protect private and sensitive information. And stakeholder engagement analysis has identified 3 critical problem statements. We really need to enable better cross-government data management for improved decision-making, the need for coordinated infrastructure data to support the delivery of management of assets and services, and the need to plan, deliver and operate a digitally enabled Brisbane 2032 and beyond. The South East Queensland digital twin proof of concept is also being delivered by my team, and I think that data aspect is a huge challenge and one that we continue to focus on. Within government, we're a single entity, but the ability for different agencies and entities within the Queensland Government to share data and collaborate in a digital way is something we continue to tackle. The South East Queensland digital twin can help address issues by managing the built environment as an internet-connected system of systems and leading to more coordinated land and infrastructure planning, delivery and operations, and support the delivery of Brisbane 2032. The government has determined that we seize the opportunities of changing demand in a decarbonising world, and we'll get there by using all of the levers available to us. So we are on the cusp of a new wave of economic growth, and driven by the global shift to cleaner, greener and more sustainable products and services that we can look forward to showcasing during the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. So I want to thank you all for listening, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and questions on how we can work together to make this happen.
Thank you, Leah. Well, now I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our panellists and request for them to actually join us up here on the stage. But I will do a formal introduction of you both, Evelyn. Too excited. Evelyn Story. Evelyn is Oricon's Managing Director for Queensland, leading a team of 700 staff across 8 offices and has 35 years experience as a structural engineer and has successfully led multidisciplinary design teams for complex and award-winning buildings in both Australia and the UK. Evelyn, very proud to say this, is a Fellow of Engineers Australia and a graduate of the Australian Institute of Directors. She also served on the board of the BPEQ, the government regulator, as we all know, in Queensland as Director and Deputy Chair for 6 years from 2016 to 2022. And Evelyn is currently our Chair of the Structural College Board of Engineers Australia and a member of the Advisory Board of CIBSE Australia. Please welcome Evelyn Story. I would also like to welcome our panellist Rob Malkin from Bentley Systems. Oops, wrong one. Rob is the Senior Regional Director for Australia and New Zealand at Bentley Systems, with over 25 years of extensive experience in steering emerging businesses across the Asia-Pacific region. In his most recent executive role, Rob served as the Vice President of Neural, where he showcased exceptional leadership skills by securing prestigious accounts. Prior to this, his career highlights include key leadership roles at Autodesk and other organisations, and relocating to the APAC market, where he joined the mature markets for AEC. Please join me in welcoming Rob Malkin. And I'll also invite Leah back up for today's discussion. Now, don't forget, we'll be taking questions from the audience after the panel discussion, so please get those questions in mind. Okay, so firstly, hello everyone. I'll direct this question, it will go to all of you, and so it's, how do you see the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games are going to be delivered differently to those that have been done in the past? So that's the first part of the question. And the second part is, what innovations in infrastructure do you see being different, and how do you feel the digital technology will support this? Okay, who wants to kick off? Maybe Evelyn?
I can start. Is that working okay?
Yes.
Yep, good. Well, I think Leah's already answered that question, actually. But I think the opportunity for us is the digital technologies that are available, the digital twin. So it'll enable us to plan at a precinct and level that we've never done before. But I think what I'm particularly excited about is this twinning of digital and sustainability, and how we can actually use the technology to help drive, this low carbon games that we are contractually signed up to, the climate positive games. So I think that is probably very different. I think we're the first games that are actually signed up contractually to deliver a climate positive game. So I think digital technologies alongside the upskilling of the entire industry, and we can talk a bit more about that later, but the upskilling that we will all need to be able to deliver that climate positive games is really quite exciting and will be quite different.
Excellent.
And I think Lee did a great job highlighting several things, but the mobility aspects of what's going to go on with the population, just of the surging, by 2048, but the number of people coming for the games and having somewhat of an existing infrastructure to develop the games, the mobility, the movement of the people in a very sustainable manner is critical. And probably unlike previous games, I've been associated with some games in the past, common data element of being able to take all the aspects of the digital twinning and then moving that into the asset ownership for the next 40, 50, 80 years, maintaining that with a carbon neutral footprint is going to be unprecedented, and the games here are going to do it for sure.
I think the focus on the new norm, not building all of new infrastructure for the games, but looking at focusing on new and upgraded venues is one way that Brisbane 2032 will be different. But it also does present those challenges around mobility with key centres at the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast and in Brisbane. Locals, as well as people travelling from interstate or overseas, may choose to stay on a particular coast because they'll want a particular experience, but may get their tickets for events at any of those other centres. And they'll have to be able to navigate from their home or hotel to their event as seamlessly as they can. And those are long distances that people are going to be required to travel. So the work that the Department of Transport and Main Roads is doing and already has done a lot of work on as part of the Shaping SEQ regional plan update to combine planning information with transport data and to be able to plan for those movements during the games will be critical. I think, we've got such a wonderful state, and it'll be great to showcase the state, this region, but having people be able to move between venues to see their events seamlessly will really impact how people view the Brisbane 2032 games. So while the focus on on upgraded venues and the over 80% of existing venues is key, it does present its challenges, and that's what we're working really hard to try and make as great as an experience as we can.
Thank you. Probably going on, Leah, from that, talking about the connectivity, and one of the things that always comes up that I've seen when we're talking about 2032 is the legacy. So just hoping if you could maybe touch on what legacy do you believe the games will provide for the future, I suppose the future infrastructure here in Queensland?
I think that while the focus again recently has been on venues and villages, it really is the transport legacy that will transform the South East Queensland region. And, there's a real challenge delivering what's needed for the games in the context of the $89 billion big build. We've got priorities in the energy space, in water, housing challenges, but we need to invest in transport to connect those venues and villages, not just for the games, but for the communities that will use them, before the games and beyond. So I think the legacy will be having a more interconnected region and state. And as Evelyn said, the use of digital technology to better plan for and manage those assets will be critical. The games themselves, I said not just a 4-week sporting event, but it is a real catalyst to focus on problems that have been around for a while, but gives us a time frame and a profile to try and meet those challenges in a way that we haven't before.
Excellent. Evelyn, or... Yep.
Yeah, I might add to that. I think clearly there's an amazing legacy in terms of the transportation and connectivity of our region that will last long beyond the games. What I'm particularly excited about is, as I said earlier, is the upskilling that's required to deliver the game. So everyone in this room who's involved with engineering design, it's not just something that's targets that are happening elsewhere. We've all got to be upskilled so that we can deliver carbon neutral infrastructure. We've got to understand what that means in terms of low carbon design, of materials tracking, and that will actually benefit us beyond just the infrastructure that we're building for the games. Every project for decades afterwards will benefit. Our whole region will benefit from that because we'll have a skilled workforce that understands what it means to deliver low carbon design, carbon neutral design, sustainable outcomes, circular economy. And I think alongside that, the materials development that we're going to need. So we're going to have to build, the green steel, green concrete, timber industries to support it, which will benefit us long past just the games of 4 weeks. All the, our entire region will benefit from those technologies that we'll have to develop in order to just meet our commitments for the games.
Yeah.
I also think another thing about the upskilling of the talent of the engineering design is one thing, but now with all the digital twinning and the data that's readily available, it's allowing the community who may not be an engineer, but actually able to consume and review the data. Like there's a lot going on in the build of Victoria, for example, where the IoT sensors are showing vibration of a new tunnel being built. So a community that's going to get that tunnel 2 years from now doesn't have the anxiety and the house values don't go down. It's really bringing in the non-engineering community to be part of the games early on and really embrace it, as opposed to, this is going to cause more traffic, this is going to do everything else. It's alleviating all that and using that data rich that the community builds and really making that available in ways we haven't been able to do before.
Well, Rob, from that, just kind of jumping in from the legacy the games will have on, obviously, Southeast Queensland. So what specific technology do you see to be a key driver in building?
One of the things that we're seeing most about from our customers and the asset owners is a really of a common data element, taking all aspects of the design and being able to, no matter what it is, no matter what vendor, no matter what's the public readily information, taking it into a common, design element, data element, and then being able to look and plan for how do you take that data and make it into that digital twin, and what's beyond a digital twin, right? And it's evolving, but it's really the carbon and showing the IoT vibrations and actually the AI. We're seeing this in a lot of utilities right now that are using AI to predict with readily available public data, is that substation going to deteriorate in 7 years? But the climate's changing, so the AI models are being updated. It's things over the next 4 or 5 years, especially the common data element. We can take all that data, and we probably haven't piqued our interest yet on what data we need yet, but as long as we have it all, we can actually see it and start visualizing it.
Yeah. And Leah, from the government side of things, I know you touched on Cross River Rail and utilising digital twin technology there. How do you see industry actually assisting?
I think it starts from our early planning phases, and I think if we are looking for digital by default, it's building in, to your point, the capture of that data. We may not know all the things we want to use it for now, but if we've got it, we've got access to it, we can share it. I think that's absolutely critical. In government, we can really create a silo and find ways not to share information, and I think we've got to break down those barriers within government and with industry to be able to benefit all of us. So that's a real focus. When we talk about the digital twin, we're looking at a proof of concept for Southeast Queensland, but I keep talking to, my team in other departments. It's not a single product or platform. It's a whole range of systems and products and ways of using data that we can share. And I think that's absolutely critical. I don't think we do that well enough yet. I think hopefully we're getting there. And for me, there's the technology aspect and the data aspect of it. But I think in the work that we do in planning for and delivering our infrastructure with communities, it's about using that to create social license. The data is one thing, but it helps us do our jobs better in engagement, because when people understand the benefits of what they're going to be able to use in their communities and see and touch and feel, I think the fear of change and the disruption it may cause can be lessened. So it's the enabler for better engagement with communities as we go through this big transition to better explain what's happening, when it will be happening, what the impacts will be and what the benefits are.
And maybe just to expand on that, I mean, we've been really pleased to be working with Leah's team on this, on the proof of concept. But I think that the data is key. And look, you talked about government, can find it difficult sometimes to collaborate and communicate. The same is for our industries. I mean, I guess we are used to competing and collecting data, and that gives us a competitive advantage. But for the good of our region and development, and to accommodate those millions of people who will be living here by 2050, we have to collaborate and get better at sharing data, because actually and actually capturing that data in a consistent way. So our information management, so the whole industry is doing that in a absolutely aligned way, so it can be shared seamlessly across all of us.
If I could just add one thing there, I talked about construction sector productivity, and I think that we've got more infrastructure spend than we've ever had before. And I say spend because we are spending more. In many cases that reflects actual delivery. In some cases it's escalation and other factors associated with the market that has workforce shortages and supply chain challenges. There's just that much to be done that more collaboration and sharing does benefit us all. Competing and I think doesn't move the industry and the sector forward, and that productivity challenge I think is something that collectively we all need to work on to deliver projects more efficiently, faster, and digital's a huge part of that. So the collaboration element is key, and like I said, I'm not looking just to industry for that, it's government as well, but we've got a collective challenge, and how are we changing old ways of working to say if we collaborate and share more, it doesn't preclude that sort of competition and the good projects we all want to win and work on, but it just means we're doing it smarter and we're sharing, and then the people are so critical to those teams and how they deliver those projects, not just the information we've got to do it better.
And then challenging the status quo. I'm seeing a project right now in another country on an airport where they're expecting growth, 6 million, 7 million, but they're saying, wait a minute, if immigration still continues, it's going to be 9 million. How do we actually plan for the unplanned 50 years ahead? And this is where the use of AI and some of the newer technology can sit there and say, we don't know what we don't know, so let's plan for double. What does it mean? What does it cost? And how do we actually improve the productivity? So it's going to be fascinating the next decade or so around Australia for sure.
Evelyn, just going back to, you were talking about the skilled workforce. So probably just with regards to Aurecon, how you're dealing with the challenges of finding, training and keeping enough skilled workers to meet the demands of these large-scale construction projects.
Yeah, well, if I could solve that, my life would be a lot easier. So if anyone's got any ideas, let's talk. But yes, I think any number of reports that you can read will talk about how the east coast of Australia is potentially 10,000 engineers short of what we need to deliver energy transition, Olympic and Paralympic Games, unprecedented health spend, the big build basically in southeast Queensland. So, and Engineers Australia have been doing some great work in this space, looking at migration, upskilling, and look, as an organisation, Aurecon's been doing the same, and I'm sure many of you have as well. I think what that really unlocks, though, is incremental change, and what we really need is step change for that big build. And I think again, this is where the digital, the benefits of digital, and unlocking that horrible word productivity, but it's the word of the moment. How we deliver more with the core group of people we have in our region already is going to be key to this. So we've been investing a lot in AI and automation. engineers are inherently smart and are always looking for ways to improve and finesse things, but actually how you do that at scale, how you roll that out across an organisation and indeed across an entire industry, how we share that for the good of our region and beyond, is going to be the key to that. So moving from that inherent closed shop, I'm working on this small piece of automation, how we scale that across organisations and industry is going to be key to unlocking. And then you mentioned skills as well. We're looking a lot at the crossover of skills. So how, I guess traditionally we're all in silos to some extent of areas that we excel in, whether that, I'm civil engineering in water or civil engineering in roads, or I'm a building structural engineer. We're now looking a lot more at the crossover and a much more distributed and multi-skilled workforce who can switch between industries as needed. The core skills that engineers have will always be there. You don't have to stick to one industry. So, lots of challenges ahead, though.
Excellent, thank you. Rob, I've got a good question for you. What are the most interesting technologies that I suppose you would hope to incorporate into the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games?
The two that I'm most excited about that we're seeing is the mobility. The efficiency of moving people around in mass, not just by cars, not necessarily on trains or different modes that are going to be coming available. And then it's going to be the data rich information of the assets, how are those assets going to live for 50 to 60 to 70 years. So it's that common data envelopment, and it's taking that digital twin to the next level. And that's what we're seeing across the board right now, being challenged from our customers in the industry. How do we take what we have today, build on it, make it an open common platform? Because we want to capture every bit of data, even if we don't know what we need it for, but we're going to want to use it for something to satisfy somebody. And more often than not, we're seeing in the big builds around Australia in particular, that the community who isn't an engineer, but wants to see the carbon footprint or the dust, or they really want to be, and we want to get them in part of it because it's affecting all of our communities, right? And there's not in my backyard. We don't want that. We need, with immigration and the population growth, we need better ways to move people around and make sure that the data is available.
Excellent. Did Evelyn, from Oricon's point of view, is there some technology that you can see that would be?
Yeah, look, I think I touched on it earlier. I think absolutely the technologies that Rob's talking about are key. But I think what I'm particularly excited about is how our industry will transform through the delivery of the games infrastructure, but beyond. So I think seeing a normalising of the technologies to produce green steel, green aluminium, whatever, any material you want, green ceilings, I think there's been a lot of focus on how a climate neutral or climate positive games might influence, merchandising industry or the hospitality industry, how hotels will have to adapt. But I think more broadly, the technologies that would be embedded in our, in the construction industry to deliver the games will be absolutely transformative. Really looking forward. And then the tracking of waste. I think we've already talked about that, how we minimise waste, how we track it. All of those occur at the moment in ad hoc ways. It's going to have to be embedded across the whole industry, and it'll be the new norm. So that's really what's quite exciting.
The question that I've got now is, I suppose, around the challenges that you're seeing ahead with regards to how we will contribute to a climate positive 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games, and the commitment to the net zero construction. So probably just to focus in on that aspect.
Well, I guess that's what I was. Building on that, I do think we do a lot of good work in this space already. Many of our construction partners, many consultants, many engineers are already focusing on what needs to happen, but it's ad hoc. It's not a consistent industry-wide approach, and so I think that's really where the benefit can come, is sharing those case studies, sharing the wins and what that means for industry to design a low carbon or no carbon piece of infrastructure, how we actually track that through the construction process, how things get built, and indeed what then gets handed over so that it's an operationally net zero piece of infrastructure, and then finally how it's designed for end of life. There's not much point if we deliver amazing infrastructure for 2032, but then we have to, demolish, replace it all, and it all heads off to landfill sort of a decade later. So I think that's really the focus. That's going to have to be the focus for industry, is coming together in a consistent way so that it happens all the time, not just in ad hoc pieces.
And I think it's projects like this that really raise the bar for everybody.
I think for us, it's that we've set the vision and we've set some targets, but we are planning and delivering alongside the development of those new technologies and the need to develop those new industries to support them. So how we can build in those new ways of working, the focus on waste, the focus on new construction products and ways when government procurement and the way we approach the market also needs to evolve alongside that. So again, there's pockets of great work being done, lots of different companies, entities, researchers coming up with great ideas. How as a government do we procure in such a way that we capture that and we're all able to benefit from it? Because whilst 2032, some days it seems like a long way away and sometimes it seems really close, but we do have to start going to market soon on some projects to deliver them in time for the games, but we haven't yet figured out all the ways we're going to achieve those targets. So working in an agile way to be able to adapt how we design and then deliver that infrastructure alongside the creation of the industries and the technology will be a challenge.
And look, I think there's a role for Engineers Australia here as well, because we talk about how government standards and specifications have to change. So do our engineering specifications. So, through Standards Australia, Engineers Australia has a big part to play in how things may have to adapt so that we can adopt new materials. And we're probably going to have to move at a speed that anybody who's ever been involved with the code committee knows that it doesn't necessarily move at lightning speed. So, but the games are only in 2032. So, in order to deliver on that, we're going to have to move much quicker than potentially we have done in the past.
And it's universities and high school. I have a young son right now, first year of architecture, and they're not going fast enough, right? In learning and being applied. So, it's going to be interesting.
And I think it's also the role of engineers and communicating with the public, with each other, with different disciplines. I know that seems to be something that does always come up as well. Rob, just a question for you. Like we've been talking a lot about the importance of data and how this will be the crux of everything. Did you want to offer, I suppose, a bit more insight into how we manage the logistics, how they monitor progress, how they ensure that, it could be safety at the construction site? How do we improve that data?
Well, it starts, at least in my experience over the last 25 years, it starts with knowing what the end is and what kind of data you need, and then challenging ourselves saying, we need more data and here's why. Like prefab hospitals, and that stuff's fantastic. You want to bring that on site. You also need to plan then that site can actually handle the delivery and the staging of all that. And that's been done before, but today what's happening is people are time poor, resources are expensive, and the timelines to get it done are even faster. So it's really building out those algorithms and using AI and generative design and to plan out how to do it the most effectively. And if one thing's off track, if delivery is off track by even 2 or 3 days, how to actually plan to keep the project going on time by bringing in other trades or trying to do other things. And it's really that pre-planning of contingencies at the same time, using that common data element. And that's what I keep talking about, because again, what we do is helping all of you hopefully do and be more productive, but it's that common data element that's absolutely critical to any digital twin that's going to be going forward.
Excellent. Okay, probably a question for Evelyn. So lessons learnt from other games, so be it London, Sydney seems like forever ago, so it's probably out of date. But what are the lessons learnt for the industry from these big projects or these games that we've had in the past?
Yeah, well, look, and I'm sure Lee will have something to say about this as well. I think, as an industry, we've all been looking to previous games and the games that are currently in train and coming up, so Paris, to reaching into our networks to understand the lessons learned. I think some of the really big picture items have been around the delivery of mega projects, I think, and the complexity that involves. I think we've all heard horror stories and success stories, but actually the complexity of actually delivering across multiple locations in with a very distributed workforce has really brought some good learnings into the industry. I think the upskilling process that is required for an industry to deliver is probably unprecedented from our perspective. We're going a step further in terms of, I suppose it's a games unlike any previous game. So to some extent we are trailblazers in terms of the distributed nature of the games, the reuse of existing venues, and the amount of transport that will happen. So in some ways we'll have to blaze our own trail, but I think probably the delivery of the projects will be and understanding what went wrong and the lessons learned will be key to that.
Leah, did you want to add?
Yeah, I think I talked about the 60-day independent review of the sports venues, but the government has also announced the creation of a delivery authority, which is expected to be operational around mid-year. And I think from a government perspective, that's a really important governance step, and certainly a learning from previous games. We're regularly in contact with people who worked on London, because I think for government, it's about trying to get an entity that is focused on delivery in the most independent way it can. It's government funds, so of course there has to be some government oversight from all three levels of government who partnered to deliver these games, but giving an entity the empowerment to go and deliver, to look at delivery models and ways of delivery that will best enable it to reach those targets for the games, I think is a great step and something that's really critical. And we're not just looking at previous games, but that mega project experience around Western Sydney Airport and Sydney Metro and other major projects that have involved multiple levels of government and ways of delivery that have perhaps greater collaboration between the public and private sectors is something we're looking at, because they are trying to deliver mega projects in a constrained market, but don't really have everyone's got a deadline and needs to get their project finished, but we've got an event that needs to have all of this stuff ready for. So how do we set a path to success from the governance that enables them to plan, procure and deliver the infrastructure in a way that's agile and is able to adopt new approaches and technology to deliver on time? I think that's the challenge. We talk to people from other games saying it suffers from eternal beginner syndrome. Everyone thinks they know projects and mega projects, but every games is different. Our context is different. The timeframes are just different to other mega projects and events. So really setting up a structure that allows that decision making to happen in the most agile way it can is critical, and so I think it's good we're on that path.
A question for the panel. So how would we actually rate Queensland's maturity in digital project delivery compared with other states, obviously in Australia, but maybe other parts of the world?
It's a good question for the audience as well to answer, to be honest.
Look, I think I suppose from a personal view is, I think the ambition of the region's digital twin is really is fantastic to see. I mean, I think the fact that we're aiming to look at an entire region is a step forward. I think we've seen really good examples across Australia of individual precincts and digital twins, and I mentioned just a couple of them there. So I think jury's out. We'll see how we go in delivering it, but I think the ambition is there and the processes and policies are coming into place. If we can nail it, then I think that will put us at cutting edge. So we'll have to watch this space. So no pressure, everyone. No pressure, Leah.
The challenge is there, people.
I mean, I've been living here for 15 years after stints around the world. I mean, the engineering skill set and the adoption of technology in Australia far surpasses most other countries. So it's a kudos to everybody in the room and Engineers Australia in the industry, how fast and how well Australia adopts. I live in Sydney, so I don't want to make any comment on Queensland, but I mean, it's fantastic. And it's because of the reuse of the games is something different, right? We don't know what we don't know yet, as opposed to other cities in other countries that have built new ones, and all of a sudden those mega projects become mothballs. We're putting it in a big population that's going to grow. How do we use it? And then how do we get the games back in 20 or 30 years reusing the infrastructure that we're doing today?
I think we've got areas of great innovation and systems and platforms and particular projects that do make great use of data. But I think for me, it's that continuous improvement and collaboration and sharing of that. How do we not have to learn again on every project? And so I think that's really what will step us forward is, taking those great innovations and sharing learnings across projects. And that can be a real challenge too, because particularly when we have something like the big build and projects are moving fast and we need a greater workforce to help deliver, how do we take the time to share those learnings and benefit future projects is probably a big challenge. I think government's investing in a range of areas from Cross River Rail to the SEQ digital twin to I mentioned the work Transport's doing with its multi-model, and there are a range of other examples. That's just a few that I'm sort of aware of from more recent work. But how do we share those learnings, I think, is the big challenge to make that step change as opposed to the incremental one.
And look, I think the real benefit we'll see post 2032 when there is a digital twin. Let's talk positively, and we can actually play. It's like a sandbox for actually planning, the development of into the future. So once we're able to make judgments, we've talked about the big build, in SEQ, but there's the small matter of the world's largest hydropower dams up in Mackay. There's an unprecedented health build going across the state. When we can make judgments, as a government industry partnership on where to direct our workforce, where to direct our engineering skills. Maybe we will prioritise this hospital over this hydrogen plant, or yes, we can assess we can do them all at once. That's when you've really got a great tool that is actually helping inform where we need to develop, and we can test it because there's a model that has the right level of complexity that can assess the impact on not just a place but also the planning of a place and the skills and workforce that's needed to deliver it. That's when we'll know we're winning. Yeah.
Perfect. Look, I might ask one more question in the panel and then I'll open the floor up to you, the audience. So get your questions ready. But Leah, I was really, we had one of the questions that came through and you may have touched on it in your presentation, but probably one of the things was what elements of the 2032 Olympics will remain as its legacy? Not just infrastructure, but I suppose the question was around from a social, environmental change.
I think we've talked about the climate and decarbonisation targets. I talked about accessibility. I think that's a big one. And now, we talk about the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games, giving, an equal weight to the Paralympic Games, which will also make use of all of the infrastructure that we build. So I think focus on the full event will be really critical, and planning that infrastructure and the experience for all abilities is a legacy that we want to leave. I think greater inclusion and working more closely with First Nations peoples is also really important. I think we are improving practices there, but still sometimes on projects it can be an afterthought, but embedding design up front and working with First Nations people embedded in our teams is really important. But I think the legacy from the Games almost will be, if everyone remembers the gold medals and the great moments and almost doesn't talk about the infrastructure, I think will be the legacy. We just want people to enjoy the event and to have a great time and to explore all that Queensland has to offer, and takes away those memories as opposed to they struggled to get somewhere or, a particular piece of infrastructure wasn't great quality. You almost don't want the infrastructure to be the feature of the Games. You want it to be just the thing that enables an amazing experience for everyone who comes here.
Look, I think I've touched on it already, but I think the legacy, another legacy will be the transformation of industry in terms of, how we move to, a sustainable industry. So construction, engineering, working in partnership. I think, we've often talked at our organisation, I'm sure many of you have, about how we need sustainability to become as embedded in our thinking as safety and design is, so sustainability in design. And I think, sometimes you can move incrementally, but a real focus area like an Olympic and Paralympic Games just focuses the mind. There's an end date. We have to transform. We have to deliver to our contractual obligations. So I think probably that the the legacy will be, quite transformative for our industry moving forward.
That will be the end of our session today. So please join me in once again thanking Leah Kelly, Evelyn Story and Rob Malcolm for their time and input. I would also like to thank Engineers Australia's industry partner, Bentley Systems, for their support and for making this event happen. And we really do value everyone's feedback for the session today. So I've just put up a QR code. If you could please click on that and complete the short feedback form, by which when you click on the QR code, it'll come up. And once more, thank you all so much for coming along today, and we invite you to please continue to network with our session today. There is still food and drinks available, so definitely encourage you all to stay. But yeah, thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.